Every state has its stories, but some are never told out loud. Behind every calm suburban street, every gas station glowing under flickering lights, every stretch of empty road under the stars, there might be something else. Something watching. Something waiting. Tonight, you're about to hear 14 of the most disturbing true horror stories from across the United States. These aren't campfire tales or old legends. They're stories pulled from police reports, recorded 911 calls, and eyewitness accounts, the kind that don't fade over time, because no one ever really figured them out. From an apartment where tenants leave without their voices to a lonely trail where hikers hear cries that mimic loved ones. These places are still out there, still active. What you're about to hear may not be safe, but it's real. And the scariest part is, some of these stories didn't end, they just paused until now. 30 years ago, I saw something that wasn't supposed to exist. A shimmering, invisible thing that watched me from a tree. Its faint click, click, click still haunts my nightmares. I was just a kid, but the fear was real, and it's never left me. Decades later, it came back, crouching in the dark, waiting. This isn't a story I made up to scare you. This is what happened to me, and I'm still searching for answers. If you've ever felt eyes on you in the dead of night, you'll want to hear this. I grew up in Midwest Illinois, where the woods behind my grandmother's house were my playground. When I was about 5 years old, I was playing by the edge of the woods behind my grandmother's house. Her home was a warm refuge, with big windows that looked out onto the forest, a place where history lingered in the soil. I was obsessed with digging in the dirt at the time, searching for arrowheads and strange rocks near the ancient mounds. That fall day, the air was cool, leaves crunching under my sneakers. I was lost in my treasure hunt, dirt smudged on my jacket, unaware that something was watching. The forest felt different that day, too still, like the world was holding its breath. A flicker caught my eye, a ripple in the air like heat rising from a road. It looked almost like a heat wave coming off the branch of the tree. My young mind couldn't grasp it. Was it a trick of the sun? But it wasn't hot, and the shimmer wasn't fading. It was there, perched above me, and it was alive. The shimmer took shape, tall and lean, with a bit of a human shape that felt all wrong. It wasn't solid, but it wasn't air either. A distortion like looking through warped glass. My shovel felt heavy in my hands, useless against whatever this was. Then I heard it. A faint sort of clicking sound, sharp and rhythmic, like a code I wasn't meant to understand. My 5-year-old brain scrambled for an explanation. I remembered thinking it had to be an angel, because monsters weren't real, right? But this didn't feel holy. It felt like it was studying me, sizing me up. The thing shifted, moving along the branch with a smoothness that made my stomach twist. It started moving, not climbing but sliding, as if the tree was just a stage for its performance. The clicking grew louder, more deliberate, echoing in the quiet woods. I was paralyzed, my breath shallow, until a surge of fear broke the spell. I hightailed it back to the house, my small legs pumping, the forest blurring around me. The clicking chased me, faint but persistent, like it was right behind me. I slammed into the back door, fumbling with the knob, and stumbled inside. My grandmother saw that I was pretty shaken up, her face tight with worry as she pulled me close. "What happened?" she asked, her voice steady but searching. I stammered about the angel in the tree, my words a jumbled mess. Grandma didn't dismiss me. She glanced out the window, her grip tightening, as if she sensed the weight of what I'd seen. That night, I lay awake, the clicking replaying in my head, wondering if it was still out there, waiting. The next day, Grandma kept me inside, her usual warmth replaced by a quiet vigilance. Years later, I realized she'd seen something too. A shadow that didn't belong. It was 2004, and I was a single mom, scraping by in a duplex on the outskirts of town. My kids were my everything, tucked safely in bed as I stepped onto the back porch for a smoke. I often went out to the back porch to light one up, the night air a brief escape from my worries. The world was quiet, the ditch behind the fence swallowing sound. Then it came. This faint clicking sound, the same eerie rhythm from my childhood. My heart stopped. I scanned the darkness, expecting a stray animal, but the air felt wrong. Too heavy, too still. I lit my cigarette, the flame trembling in my hand. A slight shift of movement caught my eye. In the tree to my left, that same invisible thing crouched down on the branch with an arm out holding onto the trunk of the tree. It was back, unchanged, a ghost from my past. My mind raced, why now, why here? The clicking intensified, sharp and urgent like a warning. Then my neighbor's dog, a quiet animal that never made a peep, exploded into barks, lunging toward the tree with a ferocity I'd never seen. This dog was not a barker by any means. Its growls confirmed what I could barely believe. I dropped my cigarette and ran inside, slammed and locked the door, my hands shaking as I checked on my kids. Their soft breathing calmed me, but I couldn't shake the dread. I peered through the blinds, the tree now empty, or so it seemed. I sat there for maybe about a good 10 minutes, watching, waiting. Just as I started to doubt myself, the dog's barking surged again, wild and desperate, until its owner called it back. I didn't sleep, haunted by the thought that it was still out there watching. That night in 2004 was the last time I saw it, but the memory clings to me like a shadow. I'm older now, with a steady job and kids who've grown, but the clicking still echoes in quiet moments. I've replayed those encounters 1,000 times, searching for meaning. Was it an animal we haven't discovered? A military experiment gone wrong? Or something else, something we're not meant to understand? I've never found answers, only questions that keep me up at night. I've shared this story before, but people laugh, call it a tall tale. Yet I know what I saw. The dog's reaction, my grandmother's unease, they weren't tricks of my mind. I've scoured forums hoping to find others who've seen it too. A few stories sound close. A hiker hearing clicks in the woods, a farmer spotting a shimmer at dusk. But nothing certain. The uncertainty is the worst part, the feeling that it could return any moment. Lately, I've noticed things. A strange silence in the woods near my home, a flicker in the corner of my eye. Last month, my son mentioned an odd sound outside his window at night, like a tap or a click. I told him it was nothing, but I checked every lock twice. I'm sharing this because I need to know. Has anyone else seen this thing? Heard that clicking? If you have, please tell me. I don't want to be alone with this anymore. What would you do if you knew something was out there watching, waiting? Would you ignore it or search for the truth? It's 2 a.m. and I'm alone on my back porch. The world dead quiet except for the faint hum of crickets. I'm a single mom, stealing a moment to smoke after tucking my kids in. But tonight, the air feels wrong. Heavy, like someone's holding their breath, watching me. I light my cigarette, and that's when I hear it. A sound that stops my heart. Not a rustle, not a twig snap, but something unnatural, like a signal from the dark. My name's Sarah, and what happened next wasn't a dream or a trick of the mind. It was real, and it changed how I see the night. Stay with me. This story will make you question what's out there when the lights go dim. I exhaled a plume of smoke, trying to shake the unease creeping up my spine. The porch light was off. I didn't want to wake the kids, and the only glow came from a street lamp by the playground across the ditch. That's when I heard it. A faint clicking sound like someone tapping a nail against metal coming from the ditch. I looked toward the ditch, expecting to see the groundhog I'd spotted a few days ago, its eyes glinting in the dark. But there was nothing, just shadows and the faint ripple of water. The clicking continued, steady, almost rhythmic, like it was measuring me. I told myself it was just an animal. This was a quiet town, the kind where the biggest drama was a raccoon, someone's trash. But the sound didn't stop. It got louder, closer, as if whatever was making it was inching toward me. My pulse quickened. I scanned the ditch, the fence, the trees lining my backyard. Nothing moved, but the air felt colder, heavier, like a storm was brewing. I felt a prickle on my neck, like someone or something was staring right at me. I crushed my cigarette, my hands trembling. The clicking was now so close it seemed to come from just beyond the porch railing. I took a step back, my eyes darting, to the dark corners of the yard. I'd heard stories about this place, old rumors about strange noises, lights flickering for no reason. My neighbor Tom once mentioned weird vibes near the ditch, but I'd brushed it off as small-town gossip. Now, standing there, I wasn't so sure. The clicking stopped, replaced by a silence so thick it pressed against my ears. Then from the edge of my vision I saw a shadow shift, too tall, too still, near the trees. My heart pounded. Whatever was out there, it wasn't just passing through. It was watching me. My eyes snapped to the tree just beyond the porch, where the shadows seemed to twist. A slight shift of movement made me look up, and there it was. A distortion. A humanoid shape crouched on the branch, one arm gripping the trunk. It wasn't solid, more like a ripple in the air, but it had weight, presence. The clicking started again, sharper now, like a warning. My breath caught. This wasn't an animal. This wasn't my mind playing tricks. It was something, and it was real. I stood frozen, my heart hammering. The thing moved, its form shifting as if testing the branch. It didn't have a face, but I felt its attention on me, heavy and cold. My instincts screamed to run. I bolted, inside slamming and locking the door behind me. My hands shook as I checked the deadbolt, then ran to the kids' rooms, checking their windows, making sure they were locked. They were sound asleep, safe, for now. I grabbed a flashlight and crept to the living room, my pulse racing. Peering through the blinds, I saw nothing. The tree was empty, the clicking gone. But the silence felt wrong, like it was hiding something. Yanked to the floor, clutching the flashlight. My mind raced. Had I really seen that? I was exhausted, stressed from work, from raising 2 kids alone. But then I noticed something outside, a faint scratch on the porch railing, barely visible. In the dim light, I hadn't seen it before. It was deep, like something sharp had dragged across the wood. My stomach twisted. Whatever that thing was, it had been here, right where I'd stood. I checked the backyard again, and for a moment, I thought I saw movement, something slipping between the trees too fast to be sure. I told myself it was just the wind, but deep down, I knew better. That thing had seen me and it wasn't gone. It was still out there, waiting. I stayed by the window, flashlight in one hand, phone in the other, too scared to move. The silence was deafening, pressing against me like a weight. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, stress, exhaustion, a trick of the light. But then it happened. My neighbor's dog, a quiet old mutt who never barked, came tearing across the yard, snarling and snapping at that exact branch in the tree. His growls were feral, his teeth bared like he was fighting something I couldn't see. He kept barking, staring at that branch even though I couldn't see anything there anymore. My heart raced. This wasn't a dog chasing a cat. This was something else, something wrong. I gripped the blinds, my knuckles white. The dog's barks echoed through the night, each one a jolt to my nerves. My neighbor, Mrs. Larson, stumbled out, her voice sharp. "Buddy, get back here!" But Buddy didn't listen. He lunged at the tree, his claws tearing at the ground, his eyes fixed on that branch. Mrs. Larson's calls grew desperate. And finally, Buddy turned, but not before letting out a low, guttural whimper, his tail tucked as he slunk back to her. I let the blinds fall, my mind spinning. Buddy had seen it. Whatever I'd glimpsed, whatever left that scratch, it was real. I grabbed a kitchen knife and sat by the door, every creak of the house making me jump. The clicking was gone, but the silence felt like a trap, like something was waiting for me to let my guard down. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every shadow, every rustle outside felt like a threat. I kept replaying it. The shape, in the tree, the way it watched me, the scratch on the railing. I wanted to call someone, but who? What would I say? I saw something invisible? They'd think I was crazy. The next morning I stepped outside, the knife still in my hand. The air was cool, the neighborhood quiet, like nothing had happened. I checked the railing. The scratch was still there, deep and jagged, like a claw mark. But there was something else. A small branch broken off, lying on the porch. It hadn't been there last night. I picked it up, my hands shaking. It was heavy, the break clean, like something had yanked it free. I looked at the tree. The branch Buddy had barked at was missing a limb. The wound fresh, sap still dripping. I went to Mrs. Larson's later, trying to sound casual. "Buddy was wild last night," I said, forcing a smile. Her face tightened. "He's never liked that," she said softly. "Not since that summer a few years back. He went crazy one night, barking at the ditch. Next day, they found a car abandoned out by the highway. No one ever figured out what happened to the driver." My stomach dropped. I hadn't heard about that. She hesitated, then added, "Some folks said they heard weird noises that night, like clicking." I froze, my mouth dry. I mumbled something, and left, my mind racing. That afternoon I called my friend Jess, who'd lived here longer than me. I told her everything, expecting her to laugh. She didn't. "Sarah," she said, her voice low, "you're not the first to see something weird around here. My cousin swore he saw a shadow in his yard one night, moving like it was alive. He moved away after that." She paused. "Be careful, and don't go out there alone at night. I haven't stepped onto the porch after dark since. I keep the doors locked, the blinds shut, the kids' windows checked twice. But some nights when the house is still, I hear it. A faint clicking just outside, like it's testing me. Last week I found another scratch on the fence, fresh, too deep to be an animal. I don't know what's out there, but it's not gone. It's watching, waiting, and I'm terrified of what it wants." My lungs burned as I sprinted through the dark park, the sound of multiple car doors slamming behind me echoing like gunshots. Footsteps pounded the pavement, too many, too fast. I didn't dare look back. My heart screamed one word: danger. How did a simple date turn into a nightmare where I was running for my life? It all started 2 weeks ago, with a swipe on a dating app. I met a girl on a local dating app. We hit it off instantly, shared interests, swapped numbers, and had an amazing first date. We hung out, went back to her place, and hooked up. She was sweet, funny, and made me feel like I'd hit the jackpot. We talked for hours, laughed over dumb memes, and planned to meet again. It was the kind of night that felt like the start of something real. But looking back, there were signs. Little cracks in her charm I didn't notice. The way she asked, too many questions about my schedule, the odd intensity in her eyes when I mentioned my address. I brushed it off, thinking I was just nervous about dating again. Little did I know that first date was the bait, and I was walking straight into a trap I couldn't see coming. 2 weeks later, her texts changed. No more emojis, no playful banter, just cold, direct messages answered instantly, like someone else was holding her phone. It was like she'd flipped a switch. She'd text at 2 a.m., "Where are you right now?" Or, "Who are you with?" I thought she was just clingy, maybe jealous, but then she started mentioning things she shouldn't know. My favorite diner, the gym I went to. Once she texted, "Nice blue hoodie," while I was wearing it, walking home alone. My stomach dropped. How did she know? Then came the meetup request. "Let's hang at the park tomorrow, 9 p.m. I hesitated. A park at night? That's not a date. It's a red flag. I suggested a coffee shop, but she shut me down. She insisted on the park, saying she needed to get gas nearby. Her tone was sharp, almost commanding. "Be there, don't make this difficult." My gut screamed walk away, but I couldn't shake the need to know what she was playing at. The next day, I spotted a black SUV parked across from my apartment. No one inside, but it felt wrong. That night, I got a call from a blocked number. No voice, just breathing. Then a click. Was it her? Or someone she was working with? I started checking my locks twice, glancing over my shoulder everywhere I went. Something was coming, and I was already caught in its web. The park was dead silent. When I got there, the single street lamp casting long, eerie shadows. It was 9 p.m., and the air felt thick, like trouble was waiting. I stood by a bench, phone in hand, nerves on edge. Her car, a black SUV just like the one near my place, rolled into the lot. I waited, feeling uneasy, wondering why she wasn't. Leaving her car, the tinted windows hid everything. Was she even in there? I called out, "Hey, you there?" Nothing. My phone buzzed, her name on the screen. I answered, but all I got was static. Then a faint laugh, low and cold. My skin prickled. Suddenly I heard it. Not one, but multiple car doors opening, 2, maybe 3. The sound cut through the night like a blade. My body kicked into overdrive and I ran, feet pounding the dirt path, heart slamming against my ribs. Footsteps thundered. Behind me, more than one set, heavy and relentless. A man's voice barked something I couldn't make out. I weaved through trees, breath ragged, praying I'd make it to the main road. Then I tripped, sprawling into the dirt. My hand landed on something hard. Her phone dropped in the grass. The screen lit up with a text. "He's running. Get him." Sent to an unknown number. My blood froze. This was a setup. I scrambled, up tossing the phone, and sprinted harder. The footsteps faded, but I didn't stop until I hit a 24-hour diner a mile away. I burst inside, gasping, and begged the waitress to call a cab. She looked at me like I was unhinged, but I didn't care. I was alive. As I waited, I replayed it all. Her texts, her insistence, the car. She wasn't just a clingy date. She was part of something bigger, and I'd almost paid the price. I deleted her number, blocked her, and swore I'd never touch that app again. I was convinced she'd set me up. Maybe her boyfriend found out and wanted to jump me. I didn't want to be another headline in a jealous rage story. But the fear didn't stop there. Days later, I got a text from an unknown number. "You got lucky." No name, no context. I blocked it, but more came. Photos of me at the grocery store, my car, even my front door. Someone was watching and they wanted me scared. I went to the police, heart pounding with screenshots and a shaky voice. They asked for her last name, her address, anything concrete. I had nothing, just a first name and a deleted profile. They called it a lover's spat and told me to change my number. I wanted to scream. This wasn't a prank. This was stalking, calculated and cruel. I started noticing that black SUV again, parked a block away, always empty. My phone would ring at midnight. No one on the line, just silence. Once I found a note slipped under my door. "We know where you are." My hands shook as I burned it. Desperate, I reached out to a friend who'd used the app. He'd heard rumors, scammers using fake profiles to lure guys into traps, sometimes for robbery, sometimes worse. He told me about a guy who'd met a perfect girl, only to wake up in an alley, wallet gone, ribs bruised. Was that her game, or was it personal? I dug through the app's reviews, finding stories of ghosted dates and creepy meetups. One user warned, check their social media before you meet. Some profiles are too good to be true. I moved to a new apartment, got a new number, and installed a security camera. The text stopped, but the paranoia didn't. Every stranger's glance felt like a threat. Every car idling nearby made my pulse race. I started researching online safety, learning how predators use apps to target victims. They study your posts, your routines, your weaknesses. I'd given her too much. My favorite spots, my work hours, my trust. Never again. This experience changed me. I don't swipe blindly anymore. I verify profiles, check mutual friends, and always meet in public. Daylight hours only. My biggest lesson? Trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably... I'm lucky I ran that night, but not everyone gets a second chance. I still don't know who was in that car or what they wanted, but I'm just glad I got out when I did. If you're out there looking for love online, be careful. Do your homework. Stay sharp. And if your date pushes you to meet somewhere sketchy, run, because you might not get another shot. Have you ever had a date that made your skin crawl? Share your story below. His eyes locked onto mine, cold and unblinking, like a hunter sizing up his prey. It was 1 a.m. at a deserted gas station off a lonely Midwest highway, and I was alone. That stare, it wasn't curiosity. It was a warning. My heart pounded as I realized this wasn't just a pit stop. This was a trap. I'm a 23-year-old woman who's always been cautious, thanks to my parents' constant reminders. I was driving home after visiting family, 4 hours on the road, my gas tank dangerously low. This rest stop was my only option. Its flickering neon sign the only light for miles. I pulled up behind a car at the pump in front of me, and a man was getting gas. He was staring at me when I pulled in, his gaze cutting through the darkness. I told myself it was nothing. People glance at each other at gas stations, right? But as I slid my card into the pump, my stomach twisted. He was still staring at me through my peripheral vision, and when I looked over, he'd look away. The air felt thick, the hum of the pump unnaturally loud against the silence of the night. I scanned the lot, empty, except for his car and mine. My parents' voice echoed in my head, always check your surroundings. I did, and that's when I noticed his stare wasn't random. It was deliberate, like he was memorizing every move I made. The station's lights cast long shadows, and for a moment, I swore I saw something move at the edge of the lot. My pulse quickened. Was I imagining it? 4 hours of driving can play tricks on your mind, but this felt real. Too real. I gripped the pump nozzle, trying to stay calm, but deep down, I knew. This night was about to change everything. My hands trembled as I fumbled with the gas cap, the nozzle heavy in my grip. His son, identical to him like a younger clone, got out of the car, whispered something in his ear, and they switched places. The son took over pumping gas, his movements mechanical, but his eyes never left me. The man, though, didn't walk. Way. He jerked his body to the passenger side of my car, peering inside. his face inches from the glass, scanning the interior like he was looking for something, or someone. My breath caught. Was he checking if I was alone? I stole a glance at him and our eyes met for a split second. His stare was icy, unyielding, like he was daring me to react. Then he turned abruptly and strode into the convenience store, his boots echoing on the pavement. Relief flickered, but it vanished when I noticed the sun. He was still at the pump, his head tilted slightly, watching me with the same cold intensity. Their resemblance was uncanny. Same sharp jawline, same hollow eyes. It wasn't just a family likeness. It was like they were mirrors of each other, moving in sync. I tried to focus on the pump, my parents' advice looping in my mind. Left, right, front, back. The man was still watching me. I could feel it, even from inside the store. The son's gaze was worse, unblinking, almost predatory. The station felt smaller now, the shadows longer, the air heavier. I noticed a flicker of movement near the trash cans. A shadow, maybe, or just my nerves. But then I saw it. Another car, parked at the far end of the lot, its engine idling. The windows were tinted, but I swore I saw a silhouette inside, watching. Were they together? My heart raced. This wasn't a coincidence. They were coordinated. The pump clicked off and I yanked the nozzle out, my hands slick with sweat. I needed to get inside, away from those eyes. But as I turned, the man was back, leaning against his car, lighting a cigarette. He didn't look at me, but his posture, tense, alert, screamed that he was tracking my every move. I clutched my keys, my pulse pounding in my ears, and hurried toward the store. The fluorescent lights inside felt like a fragile shield, but the sun's gaze followed me through the glass. I made small talk with a cashier, her kids playing nearby, desperate to feel normal. But when I glanced outside, the man was gone. His car was still there, the son now in the driver's seat, staring straight ahead. Something told me I wasn't safe yet. I forced myself to walk back to my car, every step feeling like a countdown. The lot was eerily quiet. The hum of the pumps, replaced by the thud of my heartbeat. I kept my eyes on the man's car, the son still in the driver's seat, his silhouette motionless. The third car at the edge of the lot was gone, or was it hiding in the shadows? My keys dug into my palm as I approached my car. That's when I saw it. A paper slipped into the handle of my car door. My blood ran cold. My mind went straight to trafficking, to stories of women finding notes like this, marked as targets or worse. I stared at the paper, a plain white square, folded once, its edges fluttering in the night breeze. It wasn't just trash. It was placed deliberately, meant to be found. My hands shook as I reached for it, then stopped. What if it was laced with something? I'd read about that. Notes dusted with drugs to knock you out. I grabbed a napkin from my pocket, my breath shallow, and carefully pulled the paper free. The man's car roared to life, tires screeching as it sped out of the lot, the son's face a blur in the driver's seat. Were they running because I'd found it? I clutched the paper, my mind racing. I didn't dare open it, not here, not now. I slid into my car, locked the doors, and checked every window, my hands trembling so badly I nearly dropped my keys. The lot was empty now, but the weight of those stairs lingered, like they were still watching from somewhere I couldn't see. I stuffed the paper into my glove compartment, my pulse hammering. Why me? Was it random, or had they been waiting for someone like me, alone, vulnerable, just passing through? I started the engine, my foot hovering over the gas pedal. The highway stretched out, dark and endless, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being followed. Every shadow in my rearview mirror looked like their car, every flicker of light a threat. I remembered a story from a friend, a woman who found a note like this and barely escaped. Was this the same? My parents' voice rang in my ears. Trust your instincts. Mine were screaming to get out, to keep moving, to stay alive. I floored it, the gas station shrinking in my mirror. But the paper in my glove compartment felt like a bomb, ticking louder with every mile. What was on it, and what would have happened if I hadn't seen it? I pulled into a 24-hour diner a few miles down the road, my hands still shaking as I parked under the brightest streetlight I could find. The paper was locked in my glove compartment, but its presence felt like a weight on my chest. I couldn't bring myself to open it, not yet. What if it confirmed my worst fears? What if it was a name, an address, or something even more sinister? I needed to feel safe first, to think clearly. The diner's warm glow and the clatter of dishes were a stark contrast to the gas station's eerie silence. But I still checked every corner, every face, for those hollow eyes. I called my best friend Lisa, spilling the whole story in a rush. The man's stare, the sun's creepy mimicry, the paper. She was horrified, urging me to call the police, but I hesitated. What could I say? Some guy stared at me and I found a note. They'd dismiss it just like they did to others I'd read about. Lisa promised to meet me at my place, to stay with me until I felt safe. Her voice grounded me, but the fear lingered. Those men, they weren't random. They'd chosen me, and I didn't know why. My parents always told me to be aware of my surroundings, and that night, it was my lifeline. If I hadn't noticed the man's stare, the sun's switch, or the paper, I might have driven off unaware, marked for whatever they had planned. I thought about the stories, women who ignored their gut and paid the price. I wasn't going to be one of them. I decided to keep the paper unopened until I could take it to someone I trusted, maybe a cop. I knew from my hometown, until then, I'd stay vigilant, lock my doors, and avoid lonely highways. As I sipped my coffee, the highway outside felt like a void, waiting to swallow me whole. I checked my mirrors before leaving, half expecting to see their car lurking in. The dark. It wasn't there, but the feeling of being watched never faded. The paper was a question I wasn't ready to answer, but it was also a reminder. Trust your instincts because they might save your life. So I'm left with this. If you found a note like that slipped into your car door in the dead of night, would you open it? Or would you drive away knowing some answers are too dangerous to face? Tell me, because I'm still wrestling with it. What if the devil stared you in the face, not as a metaphor, but as a real breathing nightmare? Picture this. A small-town priest, a man who once ran with outlaws, standing in a darkened house where a 5-year-old girl's voice booms like a demon's growl. That's the story of Father V, and trust me, it's not for the faint of heart. I'm about to take you into the most terrifying night of his life. A night that left scars, both on his body and his soul. Buckle up, because this isn't just a ghost story. It's a descent into hell itself. Father V wasn't your typical priest. Back in the day, he was a rebel, a towering 6'4" farm boy from Oregon who drank, smoked, and caused havoc wherever he went. His life was chaos until a near-fatal stabbing in a jail cell changed everything. He swore to God he'd serve if he survived, and he did. By the time I met him in high school, he was this larger-than-life figure, blasting Rolling Stones in class, always smiling, always ready to help with an essay or a life lesson. But beneath that charisma was a story he rarely told, a story that made even the boldest skeptics question what's real. It was my freshman year at a Catholic school, and my friends and I were just bored teens looking for a thrill. One day, we stayed late pestering Father V with snarky questions about God. Prove he exists, we taunted, expecting the usual Bible-thumping response. But his smile vanished. His eyes sharpened. He leaned in and said, If you believe in God, you must believe in the devil. I've seen him. Those words hit like a sledgehammer. We laughed nervously, thinking he was joking. He wasn't. What he told us next wasn't just a story, it was a warning. A warning about a night in a small California town where a little girl became a vessel for something unspeakable. And as he spoke, I realized this wasn't going to end with a tidy moral lesson. This was going to haunt me forever. The call came at midnight, shattering the quiet of Father V's small parish in California. A sheriff's voice crackled through the phone, urgent and shaken. "Father, we need you. It's a little girl. Something's wrong." Father V, still a young priest, grabbed his Bible and holy water, his heart pounding. He'd heard of possessions before, but nothing prepared him for what waited in that house. As he drove through the foggy back roads with an older priest, Father Michael, the air felt heavy, like the night itself was holding its breath. The house was a modest ranch-style home, tucked at the edge of a sleepy town. But as they pulled up, the scene was anything but peaceful. The sheriff and the girl's parents knelt outside, praying fervently, their faces pale. A low, snarling noise, like a cat, but deeper, unnatural, came from inside. Father V's stomach churned. He'd faced danger before, but this felt different. This felt alive, malevolent. The parents sobbed, whispering about their daughter, Emily, only 5 years old, who hadn't been herself for days. She'd stopped speaking, stopped sleeping. Then came the screams, screams no child could make. Inside, the house was dark, the power inexplicably out. Flashlights cut through the gloom, revealing overturned furniture and claw marks on the walls. Father V's grip tightened on his crucifix. "Where is she?" he asked. The sheriff pointed to a hallway, his hand trembling. As they approached Emily's room, the snarling stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. The door was blocked, not locked but barricaded. They later learned Emily had ripped a wardrobe nailed to the wall and dragged it across the room. A 5-year-old. Possible. Father V's mind raced. Was this a prank, a mental illness, or something far worse? Before they could process it, a cackle erupted from the room. A deep, masculine laugh that sent chills down their spines. Father Michael whispered a prayer, but Father V felt it. Whatever was in that room knew they were there. It was waiting. And it was hungry. What kind of force could turn a child into a monster? And more importantly, could they stop it before it claimed them all? With a collective heave, Father V, Father Michael, and the sheriff forced the door open, toppling the wardrobe. The room was pitch black, the air thick with a sulfurous stench. Their flashlights flickered as if struggling against the darkness. Then they saw her. Emily clung to the ceiling's corner, upside down, her eyes jet black, a heinous smile twisting her face. Father V froze, his breath catching. This wasn't a child. This was something else entirely. "Emily!" Father Michael called, his voice trembling. The girl's head snapped toward him, her smile widening. She let out a deep, malevolent cackle, chanting in Latin, naming each man by their fathers. "Mick, son of John, son of Thomas." Father V's blood ran cold. How could she know? The sheriff stumbled back, muttering prayers. Father Michael began reciting scripture, but Emily only laughed harder, her voice echoing like a chorus of demons. Father Michael splashed holy water, but it vaporized on her skin, hissing like acid. The room shook, picture frames crashing to the floor. Father V's instincts screamed to run, but he couldn't abandon the girl. He stepped forward, clutching his crucifix. "In the name of Jesus, leave her," he shouted. Emily's laughter stopped, her head tilted unnaturally, her black eyes boring into him. Then, in a voice that seemed to come from the depths of hell, She spoke. I am Lucifer, king of the underworld. I have ruled this earth before and will rule again. The words weren't just heard. They were felt, like a blade slicing through. His soul? Suddenly, Emily lunged impossibly fast, pinning the sheriff to the ground. Her tiny hands clawed at Father V, tearing through his shirt, leaving bloody scratches across his stomach. Father Michael grabbed her, pulling her onto the bed, but she thrashed like a wild animal, foaming at the mouth. The walls pulsed, as if the house itself were alive. Father V's flashlight caught something in the corner, a shadow, formless, watching. Was it another entity? An observer from hell? He couldn't tell. All he knew was they were running out of time. If they didn't act, this thing would consume them all. But what could stop a force that called itself Lucifer? Father Michael's voice grew steady, his Latin prayers cutting through the chaos. Father V joined him, their words intertwining like a shield against the darkness. Emily writhed on the bed, her screams morphing into an animalistic howl. The shadow in the corner pulsed, growing larger, as if feeding on her resistance. Father V's heart pounded, but he refused to break. You will not win, he whispered, pressing his crucifix against Emily's forehead. Her body convulsed, black sludge pouring from her mouth, mixed with what looked like writhing insects. The room stilled. Emily collapsed, her tiny frame limp. Father Michael checked her pulse, his face ashen. She's alive, he gasped. The shadow vanished, leaving an oppressive silence. The sheriff, still shaken, helped carry Emily to her parents, who wept with relief. But Father V couldn't shake the feeling that something lingered. He touched his stomach, wincing. Blood seeped through his shirt where Emily's claws had torn into him. Those scars would never fade, a permanent reminder of the night he faced hell and lived. As they left the house, dawn broke, casting a pale light over the town. Father Michael warned Father V to never speak of this. Some things are better left buried, he said. But Father V couldn't forget. The girl recovered, but her eyes, once bright and innocent, held a flicker of something unnatural. Was she truly free? Or had a piece of that darkness stayed with her? Father V carried that question for years, a weight heavier than the scars. On his body, he'd won the battle, but at what cost? And what if the thing that called itself Lucifer was still out there, waiting for its next chance? Back in that high school classroom, Father V's story left us speechless. My friend and I tried to laugh it off, but his eyes held no humor. He stood, lifted his shirt, and revealed 4 long, claw-like register scars across his stomach, jagged and unmistakable. Our giggles died. This wasn't a tale spun for shock value, this was real. Father V believed every word, and now, so did we. But what he said next chilled me to the bone. The devil doesn't just appear as a monster, he whispered. Sometimes he hides in plain sight, maybe even in someone you know. Years later, I couldn't shake that warning. I dug into the records of that small California town, searching for Emily. What I found was worse than I imagined. The girl had grown up, but strange incidents followed her. A string of unexplained fires, disappearances of those close to her. Was it coincidence? Or had that night left a mark not just on Father V, but on Emily herself? And then there was the final twist, a photo in an old parish newsletter showing Father V at a church event, smiling beside a young woman. Her face was familiar, too familiar. Could it be her? Now I'm left with questions that keep me up at night. Was Father V's battle truly over? Or did he unknowingly let something slip back into the world? And if the devil can hide in plain sight, how do we know who or what is standing next to us? This isn't just a story, it's a reminder. Evil doesn't always scream. Sometimes it smiles, and it's closer than you think. A stranger's voice sliced through the darkness of my living room. I don't know either. My blood froze. I was alone, or so I thought, curled up on my sofa at 3 a.m., my dog snarling beside me. The words came from nowhere, low and gravelly, like a threat wrapped in calm. My heart pounded as I realized someone was inside my house, steps away from me and my sleeping nieces. How did they get in, and what did they want? Every summer I host a sleepover for my nieces, Maggie's kids. We watch movies, play games, eat candy until they crash. They take my bedroom and I bunk on the sofa. It's our tradition, a night of laughter and bonding in my quiet little house. I live alone with my dog Rusty, in a small town where everyone knows everyone, or so I thought. That night I went to bed feeling safe, oblivious to the danger creeping closer. Looking back, there were signs, odd noises outside, a car idling. Down the street, I ignored them, thinking it was just the wind or a neighbor. But now, with that voice echoing in my ears, I knew I'd made a mistake. The week before the sleepover, I'd noticed things off. A faint tapping on the back door one night, gone when I checked. Rusty, staring out the window, hackles up at nothing, or so I thought. Once I saw a man lingering across the street, his face hidden under a hood. But he vanished when I stepped outside. I told myself it was nothing, just small-town quirks. But deep down, I felt watched. That night, after tucking Ben and Sophie into my bed, I collapsed on the sofa, exhausted but happy. The house was quiet, save for Rusty's soft snores. Then, around 3 a.m., Rusty started barking like crazy. Deep, frantic growls that weren't like him at all. He never barks at night. I stumbled over, half asleep, and knelt beside him. "What's wrong, buddy?" I whispered, stroking his fur. Then from the darkness near the kitchen, a voice answered, "I don't know either." My heart stopped. The voice was male, calm but chilling, like he'd been standing there all along. I couldn't see him. The room was pitch black, but I felt his presence, heavy and close. Rusty's growls turned to snarls, his body tense, ready to lunge. I froze, every instinct screaming to protect the kids. Was he alone? How long had he been inside? My mind raced with worst-case scenarios. Burglary, assault, or something even darker. Terror flooded my veins. I screamed, a raw, guttural sound that tore through the silence. I bolted upstairs, heart pounding, and locked myself in the bedroom with Ben and Sophie, dialing 911 with shaking hands. The operator's calm voice felt like a lifeline as I whispered, "There's someone in my house." Ben stirred, mumbling, "Aunt Laura, what's wrong?" I shushed him, pulling both kids close, praying the lock would hold. Every creak in the house sounded like footsteps. Rusty's barking echoed below, relentless, as if he was facing off with the intruder. I strained to hear. Was the man still there? Moving? My mind flashed to the open back door I hadn't checked before bed. Had I left it unlocked? The thought made me sick. I clutched my phone, counting the seconds until help arrived. Minutes later, red and blue lights flashed through the window. I peeked out, seeing 2 officers approach. They searched the house, and when they called me down, they had a man in cuffs, a disheveled guy in his 40s, reeking of whiskey. They said he was drunk, wandered into the wrong house. But something didn't add up. His shoes left muddy prints across my kitchen floor, leading to the back door, which was ajar. Had he been wandering, or had he chosen my house? The officers found a pocket knife on him, small but sharp, tucked in his jacket. My stomach churned. What if Rusty hadn't woken me? What if I hadn't heard him? The kids could have been... I couldn't finish the thought. After the police left, I scoured the house, finding a cigarette butt in the backyard, not mine. It felt deliberate, like a calling card. Had he been watching us all night, or longer? I was terrified, replaying that voice in my head. I could barely sleep, imagining what could have happened if Rusty hadn't barked. It felt like a violation, knowing a stranger had been in my home so close to us. The police said it was a one-off, but I couldn't shake the fear. I realized I had to be more vigilant, especially at night, living alone. The days after were a blur of paranoia. I installed deadbolts, motion sensor lights, and a security camera. Rusty became my shadow, his ears perking at every sound, but the unease didn't fade. A week later, the doorbell started ringing, always late, around 2 a.m. No one was there when I checked the camera, just an empty porch. The pattern was eerie. 3 quick rings, a pause, then 3 more. It happened every night for a week, then stopped. I asked neighbors, they'd heard it too, but no one saw anything. I started noticing other things. A strange car, a beat-up sedan, parked down the street, never there during the day. Once I found scratches on my back gate like someone had tried to jimmy it open. I called the police again, but without evidence, they couldn't do much. My sister Maggie begged me to move, but this was my home. I wasn't running. Still, I stopped hosting sleepovers. The thought of Ben and Sophie in danger again was too much. I researched home safety, learning how intruders scout houses, watching for routines, testing vulnerabilities. Had he targeted me because I lived alone? Because the kids were here? I'd been too trusting, leaving windows cracked, doors unchecked. Never again. I started a neighborhood watch, sharing tips with neighbors. Lock everything, vary your schedule, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. I still don't know if he was just drunk or if there was more to it. But I'm grateful I acted fast. That night taught me how fragile safety is. Now I check every lock, keep a bat by the sofa, and never ignore Rusty's growls. If you're out there, living alone or with kids, don't take chances. Secure your home. Listen to your gut. And if your doorbell rings at 2 a.m., don't open. Have you ever had a scare that made you rethink your safety? Share below. When I was a kid, I learned what real fear feels like. Not from ghost stories or shadowy monsters, but from a man's eyes burning into me in the fading light of a park. His stare wasn't random. It was personal. Like he knew me. Like I'd wronged him. That moment decades ago still sends chills down my spine. I can still hear my footsteps echoing as I ran, his presence a weight I couldn't shake. This isn't a tale I tell lightly. It's what happened, and it's haunted me ever since. If you've ever felt someone watching you, waiting, you need to hear this. I grew up in a small town in Illinois where dusk painted the streets in soft oranges and purples. Our neighborhood was quiet, the kind of place where kids roamed free until streetlights flickered on. I went home by bus and then got off as usual and then went the route that I always do to get home. The park near our house was my shortcut, a sprawling patch of grass and trees that felt safe during the day. At 10 years old, I was fearless, my backpack bouncing as I walked, lost in thoughts of school and friends. But that evening, something shifted. A prickle on my neck, a sense that the world wasn't as empty as it seemed. The park was nearly deserted, the swing still, the air heavy with the scent of cut grass. I quickened my pace, the path winding, past a cluster of oaks. That's when I saw him, a man standing by the park's edge, half hidden in the lengthening shadows. I passed a man, and he looked at me, and had a sort of angry expression on his face as if I was somewhat familiar. His gaze locked onto me, intense and unblinking, like I'd stolen something from him. I averted my eyes, my stomach twisting, and kept walking, telling myself it was nothing. I tried to shake off the man's stare, but it clung to me like damp air. My sneakers scuffed the gravel path, each step louder in the growing dusk. I glanced back, hoping he'd moved on, but there he was, still watching. I looked behind again, and he also looked over his shoulders, his head turning slowly, deliberately, as if daring me to keep looking. My heart thudded, a warning I couldn't ignore. He wasn't just standing there anymore, he was moving, his steps measured, closing the gap between us. He turned around and followed me. Panic crept in, sharp and cold. I quickened my pace, the park's trees blurring into dark silhouettes. His footsteps echoed mine, a faint crunch on the gravel, always just behind. I told myself he was just heading the same way, but the prickle on my neck screamed otherwise. The path curved toward the park's exit, streetlights glowing faintly ahead. I risked another glance. He was closer now, his face shadowed, but his eyes still fixed on me, unyielding. My 10-year-old mind raced. Who is he? Why me? I'd never seen him before, yet his anger felt personal, like a grudge I didn't understand. I broke into a jog, my backpack slapping against my spine. The park felt endless, the safety of home a distant promise. His steps didn't falter, matching my rhythm with a predator's patience. I reached the park's edge, the street open and empty before me. I thought I'd lost him, but then I heard it. A low whistle, sharp and intentional, slicing through the evening air. It wasn't a tune, it was a signal, and it sent my pulse into overdrive. I didn't dare look back again. I hit the street, my breath ragged, the park behind me. I turned a corner, hoping to lose him in the maze of quiet houses. After I passed the corner, I ran as fast as I could, my legs burning, adrenaline flooding my veins. I darted past Mrs. Carter's house, her porch light a faint beacon, and slowed to catch my breath, thinking I'd escaped. But then, a figure stepped out from the shadows ahead. I was approached and stopped by a man who looked familiar but different. Shorter hair, a scruffy beard, yet his eyes held the same unsettling intensity. Was it the same man, disguised, or someone else? He spoke, his voice low and urgent, asking if I had any spare change. He was acting as if somebody had told him to stop me, his words stalling like he was buying time. I mumbled that I had nothing, my voice shaking, and tried to sidestep him. He moved closer, blocking my path, his hand twitching as if reaching for something. My instincts screamed to run, but I forced myself to walk, keeping my eyes on the ground. He kept talking, his voice a drone, insisting he was hungry, desperate. I repeated, sorry, I don't have anything," and picked up my pace, my heart pounding in my ears. Finally, he stepped back, his gaze lingering as I hurried away. I glanced over my shoulder, and there, in the distance, was the first man again, standing under a streetlight, watching. I went on quickly and took a detour, weaving through alleys to hide my route home. I pulled out my phone, texting my parents to open the door fast. I didn't want him to know where I lived. I ran as quickly as I could, so that hopefully he could not make out which house I actually lived in. I burst through my front door, my chest heaving, my face pale. My parents noticed something was wrong, but I brushed it off, not wanting to worry them. I didn't want my parents or my siblings to creep out, so I lied, saying some guy was selling magazines. But the fear stayed, a knot in my gut. That night I couldn't sleep, replaying the man's eyes, the whistle, the second man's strange insistence. Was it a coincidence, or were they working together? The thought made my skin crawl. Days later, the nightmare continued. Our doorbell would ring in the evenings at strange times, always after dark, with a peculiar pattern. Ring, pause, 4 times, like a code. The way the person rang the bell was really weird. I'd freeze, peering through the curtains, but no. One was there. One night, Dad started down the stairs to check, and I panicked. I told him that we should not open the door, claiming it was some prankster. He listened, but I saw doubt in his eyes. I was terrified it was him, trying to find me. The ringing stopped after a week, but the fear didn't. I started taking different routes home, avoiding the park, always checking over my shoulder. Neighbors mentioned similar late-night doorbell rings, but no one saw who it was. I wanted to tell them my story, but I was just a kid, afraid they'd think I was paranoid. Years later, I still wonder, who was he? Why did he follow me? Was he confused, mistaking me for someone else, or was it something darker? A predator testing his prey. I'm sharing this because I need to know if anyone else has felt this terror, seen those eyes. If you have, please tell me. What would you do? If you knew someone was out there, waiting for you? It's 2 a.m., and I'm a kid, wide awake in my rural Iowa bedroom, heart pounding. I hear tires crunching on gravel outside our house. I creep to the window, pulling back the curtain, and there he is. A man in a dark car, staring straight at our house through the darkness, his eyes locked on our front door like he's waiting for something or someone. I'm frozen, too scared to move. My name's Emily, and that night I came face to face with a stranger who wouldn't look away. This isn't a ghost story. It's real, and it's haunted me ever since. Stick with me, because what happened next will make you lock your doors. Twice tonight. That wasn't the first time something felt off. For weeks, our house had been plagued by phone calls ringing at 2 or 2:30 in the morning, sharp and jarring, cutting through the silence of our rural Iowa home. My parents, lost in their own struggles, never seemed to care, brushing it off as wrong numbers. But I was a light sleeper, and every ring made my stomach twist. One night, fed up, I crept to the kitchen and picked up the receiver. I heard distant music, faint, like from a bar, and heavy breathing. Slow and deliberate, like someone was listening to me listen to them. I slammed the phone down, my hands shaking, and ran back to bed. We lived on a quiet stretch of road, the kind where you know every neighbor's car by sight. Our house sat on a small hill, surrounded by cornfields, with only a gravel driveway connecting us to the world. It was peaceful, until it wasn't. The calls kept coming, always at the same time, always with that eerie breathing. My older brother Jake said it was probably a prank, but I wasn't so sure. There were stories around town, whispers about strangers passing through, cars seen idling on back roads never explained. My friend Katie told me her uncle once found an empty sedan abandoned near the highway, doors open, engine running. No one ever claimed it. After a month, my parents finally changed our number. The calls stopped and I thought it was over. But that night, as I lay in bed, I heard it. The sound of a car slowing down on the road in front of our house. My heart raced. I remembered the phone calls, the breathing, and now this. I told myself it was nothing, just a lost driver. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. I pulled the blanket tighter, praying the sound would fade. It didn't. The tires crunched closer, stopping right in our driveway. I couldn't stay. In bed. My heart pounded as I slipped out, tiptoeing to the living room. I heard the tires drive over the gravel in the driveway, slow and deliberate, like the driver didn't want to be heard. I kept my distance from the window, hiding behind the sheer curtains, and peeked out. There, in the dim glow of a street lamp, was a dark Buick Century, parked right in front of our house. A man sat inside, staring at our house in a trance-like state, his eyes fixed, unblinking, like he could see through the walls. His light hair was cropped short, his face pale under the light. He didn't move, didn't even shift in his seat for what felt like forever. I held my breath, too scared to make a sound. The clock on the wall ticked. 2:15 a.m. Who was he? Why was he here? My mind raced to the phone calls, the heavy breathing. Was this the same person? I wanted to wake Jake, but I was paralyzed, my eyes glued to the man. He just sat there, his gaze locked on our house, as if he was waiting for someone to come out. I counted the minutes, 10, then 15. Finally, he started the engine, backing up slowly, his eyes still on the house as he drove away. I sank to the floor, my legs weak. I told myself he was drunk, lost, anything to make sense of it. But the way he stared, it wasn't random. It felt personal, like he knew us. The next day, I told Jake, but he shrugged it off. Probably some creep, he said. But I saw the worry in his eyes. I checked the driveway. No tire marks, no sign he'd been there, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he'd be back. And I was right. A few weeks later, it happened again. It was a Sunday evening, and I was outside with Jake and our little sister Lily kicking a ball around the front yard. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the hill. I hated Sundays. The dread of school always hit hard. Then we heard it, a car slowing down on the road. It stopped in front of our mailbox right at the base of the hill. We froze, watching as the same Buick Century idled there, its engine humming. The man inside reached out, acting like he was putting something in the mailbox, but his eyes were on us, sharp and focused. Jake whispered, "What's he doing?" I didn't know, but my gut screamed danger. The man sat there staring up at us, his hands still on the mailbox. Lily grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. "Go check it," Jake said, nudging me. I didn't want to, but I was the youngest, always stuck with the dumb jobs. I crept down the hill, my heart in my throat. I opened the mailbox. Nothing was inside. My blood ran cold. He'd lied. I turned to run back, but then I heard it. The screech of tires as the car lurched backward, speeding toward me. I screamed, sprinting up the hill as Jake and Lily yelled for me to hurry. The car stopped just short of the mailbox, its headlights blinding me. We bolted inside, slamming the door, our breaths ragged. The Buick peeled out, disappearing down the road. We told our parents, but they didn't believe us. "You're imagining things," Mom said, her voice slurred. Dad just grunted, "Kids." But I saw the fear in Jake's eyes. He believed me. The next day, I checked the mailbox again, half expecting something to be there. Nothing. But when I looked closer, I saw scratches on the metal, fresh and deep, like someone had tried to pry it open. I didn't tell Jake, I didn't want to scare him more. But I told Katie at school, and her face went pale. "My dad saw a guy like that last month," she said. "Parked near the old mill, just watching. Cops couldn't do anything, no plates on the car." My stomach twisted. No plates? That wasn't right. Weeks passed, and I thought maybe it was over. But then one night I found something that made my blood run cold. Tucked under our doormat was a folded piece of paper, no writing, just a crude drawing of our house, with a single window circled, my bedroom. I showed Jake, and he went quiet. "We need to watch out," he said, his voice low. I started sleeping with a baseball bat under my bed, checking the locks every night. Last week I was walking home from school when I saw it. A dark car, too far to be sure, idling at the end of our road. It didn't move, but I felt those eyes, again watching. I haven't told my parents, they wouldn't listen, but I know he's still out there waiting, and I'm terrified of what he'll do next. I was 5 years old, curled up on the living room couch when I felt it, a chill that had nothing to do with the open window. I looked up, and there he was, a man's face pressed against the glass, his eyes wide, his smile twisted into something that made my stomach lurch. That moment haunts me because he wasn't just a stranger. He was our neighbor, and he was dangerous. My name's Emily, and this happened in the first house I ever lived in, a cozy two-story in a quiet Midwest suburb. It was the kind of place where kids rode bikes until sunset and neighbors waved from porches. But my parents were cautious, always locking doors, always watching. They'd built a fence around our yard when I started walking, a tall wooden barrier that felt more like a fortress than a decoration. I didn't understand why back then, but I do now. Our neighbor, a few houses down, was a registered sex offender, and his presence cast a shadow over our street. We'd only been in the house a year, and I was too young to grasp the whispers. Between my parents, words like predator and watch list. But I felt their tension, the way Mom checked the locks twice before bed, the way Dad scanned the street when he came home. The neighborhood was supposed to be safe, but something about that man's house with its overgrown lawn and shuttered windows made my skin crawl. My grandma, who babysat me most days, was the strictest of all. "Stay inside, Emily," she'd say, her voice sharp. I thought she was just being overprotective. I was wrong. That afternoon, I was watching cartoons, the summer breeze drifting through the open window. The house was quiet, Grandma in the kitchen when that chill hit me. I glanced at the window, expecting nothing. But he was there, his face so close to the glass I could see the sweat on his brow. My heart stopped. This wasn't a game. This was real. The man's name was Carl, though I didn't know it then. To me, he was just the creepy guy down the street, the one whose house kids avoided on Halloween. He'd once sprinted across the street and left a human-sized dent in our neighbor's garage door, a story that spread like wildfire among the parents. They'd found him panting, wild-eyed, claiming it was an accident. But the way he stared at their kids playing in the yard told a different story. He'd also walked into another neighbor's back door, trembling, asking to be held, only to be kicked out when she realized he was aroused. That was when the whispers turned to warnings. My parents tried to shield me, but I caught snippets of their late-night talks. "He's on a list," Dad said, his voice low. The social worker warned everyone when he moved in. Mom's reply was sharp. "We need to move, Tom. This isn't safe for Emily." I didn't understand what a list was, but I knew it made them scared. The other kids on the block felt it too. We stopped playing near Carl's house, his overgrown yard feeling like a trap waiting to spring. Once I saw him standing at his window watching us ride bikes. He didn't wave. He just stared, his face blank, like we were pieces on a chessboard. The neighborhood changed after his stunts. Porch lights stayed on all night and parents called us inside before dark. My best friend, Katie, said her mom saw Carl lurking near the park, just standing there, hands in his pockets. "He's weird," she whispered, and I nodded, my stomach twisting. But it wasn't just weirdness, it was danger, and we all felt it. My grandma was the worst. She wouldn't let me out of her sight, always checking the windows, always locking the doors. "You don't know who's out there," she'd say, her eyes darting to Carl's house. Then came the night that pushed everyone over the edge. Katie's older brother, Jake, was walking home from a friend's house when he saw Carl in his backyard, crouched near the fence, staring into their kitchen. Jake ran inside, and his dad called the police. The cops came, but Carl was gone by. Then his house dark and silent. The next day, the neighborhood was buzzing. Parents swapped stories, kids traded rumors. Was he planning something? Was he watching all of us? My parents stopped letting me play outside alone, and the fence around our yard seemed taller, but not tall enough. Every creak in the house, every shadow in the yard felt like him. And I couldn't shake the feeling that he was waiting for his chance. I was lost in my cartoons, the glow of the TV filling the living room, when that chill hit me again, sharper this time. I turned to the window and my world froze. There he was, his face and hands pressed against the glass, his eyes wide and gleaming, his smile so wide it looked like it hurt. It was Carl, and he was staring right at me, like I was the only thing in the world. My scream caught in my throat, my body paralyzed as his gaze pinned me to the couch. "Emily!" Grandma's voice snapped me out of it. She scooped me up, carrying me away from the window, her arms trembling as she rushed to the kitchen. I heard the click of the lock, the scrape of the curtains being yanked shut. "Stay here," she whispered, her face pale as she grabbed the phone. I clung to her, my heart pounding. The image of Carl's face burned into my mind. Those eyes, they weren't human. They were hungry, like he'd been waiting for this moment. Grandma called Dad, her voice shaking as she told him what happened. I caught words like police and that man, but I was too scared to listen. The house felt smaller, the walls closing in, every noise a threat. Grandma checked every door, every window, her hands fumbling with the locks. "He's gone," she said, but her eyes kept darting to the curtains like she didn't believe it. I didn't either. I could still feel his stare, like it had followed me into the kitchen. The police came, their flashlights sweeping the yard. But Carl was nowhere to be found. His house was dark, the windows blank, like it was mocking us. The cops took a report, but their faces said it all. Without proof, there was nothing they could do. That night, I slept in my parents' room. The door locked, the blinds drawn, but sleep didn't come. Every creak, every gust of wind was him, waiting outside, smiling that awful smile. The next day, Dad found footprints in the dirt outside. Our window too big to be anyone but Carl. That was the final straw. Mom packed my things, her hands shaking, and Dad called a realtor. "We're not staying here," he said, his voice hard. I didn't argue. I never wanted to see that window again, never wanted to feel those eyes on me. But deep down, I knew. Carl had seen me, and that wasn't something you could just leave behind. We moved out within weeks. The house sold to a young couple who didn't know about Carl. Our family left because of him, because that night at the window changed everything. I was 6 when we settled into our new home miles away, in a neighborhood where the yards were open, and the neighbors smiled. But the memory of Carl's face never faded. It was like a stain on my childhood, a shadow that followed me, even in the sunlight. Years later, as a teenager, I couldn't let it go. The fear, the questions, they gnawed at me. Who was he? Why me? I started digging, searching online for anything about our old street. That's when I found it. A public registry, his name listed in bold. Carl was a convicted predator, his crimes too vile to repeat. I found his Facebook page, and the photos sealed it. No doubt it was him. His face, older but unmistakable, made my stomach churn. Those eyes, that smile, they were the same, frozen in time, staring at me through the screen. I showed Mom the photo, my hands shaking. She sat me down, her voice soft but heavy. "We knew he was dangerous," she said. "That's why we left. We couldn't risk you." She told me about the social worker's visit, the warnings they'd ignored at first, hoping he'd stay away. But after that night, they knew. No fence, no lock could keep him out. Grandma had saved me, her quick thinking a shield against whatever Carl had planned. I hugged her tighter after that, grateful for her vigilance. The experience changed me. I check locks, avoid dark streets, and always trust my gut. My parents' caution, their decision to move, kept me safe, and I'll never take that for granted. But it also left scars, nightmares of his face, a fear of windows at night. I wonder about the new family in our old house. Did they know about Carl? Did he watch them too? The registry said he'd moved, but I didn't believe it. Men like him don't just stop. I'm older now, but I still look over my shoulder, still feel his eyes sometimes. That's the cost of living near someone like him. It's why we need to talk about these things, why we need to listen when our instincts scream. So here's what keeps me up at night. What would you do if you found out your neighbor was a predator? Would you stay, hoping for the best, or would you run like we did? Tell me, because I'm still wondering if we escaped in time. What if a dream wasn't just a dream, but a cry from someone long gone, begging to be found? Imagine waking up in a cold sweat. The face of a little girl burned into your mind. A girl you've never met, yet somehow know is real. That's what happened to me, and it changed everything. My name's Caleb, and this is the story of how a single night on my family's sprawling 150-acre land in rural Tennessee pulled me into a mystery that's haunted me ever since. This isn't just a ghost story. It's a puzzle, and the pieces are buried in the past. I was 13 when we moved to the old Harper property, a sprawling estate my stepdad, Tom, inherited from his family. The land was wild, fields of golden grass, dense woods, and a winding creek that sparkled under the... But there was something about it, something heavy. The air felt thick, like it was holding secrets. My mom loved the modular home we built, but I couldn't shake the unease. There was this one spot in the woods, tucked deep beyond the creek, that always gave me the creeps. It wasn't just a feeling. It was like the trees themselves were, watching, whispering warnings I couldn't quite hear. One night I went to bed like usual, expecting dreams of video games or summer adventures. Instead, I found myself in a place I'd never seen, yet felt eerily familiar. A little girl stood on the back deck of our house, no older than 7. Her blonde hair almost white, her skin pale as moonlight. She wore a simple dress, faded and old-fashioned. Her smile was warm, but her eyes were desperate. Without a word, she took my hand, her touch ice cold, and led me into the woods. My heart raced as we approached that dreaded spot, the trees looming, like silent sentinels. We walked for what felt like forever, passing figures in the shadows, people maybe, just watching us. The air grew colder, the light dimmer. Suddenly the scene shifted. Summer turned to winter, morning became evening. The girl led me to that spot in the woods where a shallow creek ran. I stopped, my breath catching. There she was, lying in the water. Her body curled into a ball, her skin blue, lifeless. I screamed, my voice echoing, but no one came. The dream shattered and I woke up gasping, her face etched in my mind. My parents were spooked when I told them, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just my imagination. Had I seen a memory? And whose? The dream clung to me like damp fog. I couldn't let it go. The girl's face, her lifeless body in the creek. It felt too real. I had to know if it meant something. The next morning I grabbed a notebook and headed to the woods, my heart pounding as I neared that cursed spot. The air was thick, the trees unnaturally still. I half expected to see her standing there, but it was just me, the creek, and an eerie silence. I sketched the area, noting every detail. The curve of the stream, the gnarled oak that loomed overhead. Something about it felt wrong. Back home, I fired up my laptop, diving into the history of the Harper land. Old records were scarce, but I found a local forum on X, where folks shared stories about the area. Most were mundane, crop yields, land disputes, but one post stopped me cold. A user mentioned a tragedy from decades ago, a child who vanished near our property. My hands shook as I clicked through to an archived newspaper article. It said a young girl, Lily Carter, had disappeared 50 years ago, just a mile from our land. No body was ever found. The article included a grainy photo, and my blood froze. The face staring back was hers, the girl from my dream. I told Tom, my stepdad who'd lived on this road his whole life. He confirmed it, his voice low. A girl had gone missing and the case was never solved, but he warned me to drop it. Some things are better left alone, he said. I couldn't. I went back to the creek, this time with a flashlight. As I stood there, the water seemed to shimmer, almost glowing. Then I saw it, a small carved stone half buried in the mud, etched with the initials LC. Lily Carter? My mind raced. Had I stumbled onto her final resting place? Or was something or someone guiding me to it? I couldn't stay away from the creek. That stone with LC haunted me, a silent scream from the past. I went back at dusk, the sky bleeding red. The woods were silent, but the air buzzed, like static before a storm. I knelt by the creek, digging around the stone. The mud was cold, clinging to my hands. Then I found it, a locket, rusted but intact, with a faded photo inside. It was Lily, her smile frozen in time. My heart pounded. This was no coincidence. She wanted me to find her. That night I barely slept. Shadows danced on my walls, and I swore I heard whispers, soft, like a child's voice. I checked X again, finding a post from a local historian. Lily's family had lived nearby, but after her disappearance, strange things happened. Crops failed, animals died. Some said the land was cursed. I asked Mom if she'd ever felt anything off. She hesitated, then admitted she'd seen a figure by the creek once. A girl, there and gone. My skin prickled. Was Lily still here? I returned to the spot, driven by a need I couldn't explain. As I stood by the creek, the water rippled, though no wind stirred. Suddenly I saw her reflection, not in my mind, but in the water. Her blue, lifeless body curled in the stream. I stumbled back, my breath hitching. The air grew frigid, and a whisper brushed my ear. Find me. I ran home, my mind reeling. Lily wasn't just a memory. She was trapped, her spirit bound to this place. But why me? And what did she want me to do? I couldn't ignore Lily's plea. I went to the local library, digging through dusty records. A faded police report confirmed it. Lily Carter, age 7, vanished in 1973. The case went cold, but rumors swirled. Some said she drowned, others claimed she was taken. I showed Tom the locket. His face paled. That's from my family's old collection, he said. It was lost years ago. How had it ended up in the creek, and why was Lily reaching out to me? I posted about it on X, hoping for answers. A user replied, claiming their grandfather, a former deputy, had searched for Lily. He'd found a child's shoe near the creek but kept it quiet, fearing it would spark panic. The shoe matched the locket's era. I felt sick. Lily had died, here, and no one knew. But the real twist came when I went back to the creek one last time. As I stood there, the water shimmered again, and I saw not just Lily but others, shadowy figures watching from the trees. Were they other lost souls, or something darker guarding this land? Now, I'm left with questions that chill me to the core. Was Lily trying to be found, or was she warning me? Is the Harper land hiding more than one tragedy? And if spirits linger here, what else is watching from the woods? This isn't just a story, it's a reminder. Some secrets don't stay buried. They call out, waiting for someone to listen. I was sick, sprawled on the living room floor, lost in cartoons, when a chill ran through me, like someone had stepped into my world uninvited. I turned, and there it was, a face pressed against our window, eyes wide, grin too big to be human. That moment froze me, a memory that claws at me decades later. It wasn't a dream, it wasn't a prank. It was real. and my grandma saw it too. This is my story, a shadow that followed my family and changed us forever. If you've ever seen something that made your blood run cold, stay with me. We lived in a small Ohio town, in a house that felt like home until that day. I had a memory resurface recently, which I had to double-check with my mom for reassurance, and she confirmed that it is unfortunately true. The neighborhood was tight-knit, kids biking down the street, neighbors waving from porches. A fence was built around the time that I was old enough to start walking, keeping me safe as I toddled around the yard. Inside, our living room was my sanctuary, with a big TV and sunlit windows that framed the world outside. That afternoon, Grandma was babysitting, her knitting needles clicking softly in the kitchen. I was glued to the screen, the hum of cartoons filling the air, unaware that something was watching me. The day was bright, the kind where sunlight spills through every crack, but a sudden unease settled over me, like a cloud passing over the sun. I couldn't explain it. A weight, a presence pressing against my back. I was sitting in our living room watching TV when I just felt like something was watching me. I ignored it at first, but the feeling grew, insistent, like eyes boring into my soul. I turned, expecting nothing, but what I saw stopped my heart. There, against the glass, was a man's face, his hands splayed like pale spiders. I turned to look out our front windows to see a man with his face and hands pressed against the glass. His eyes were too wide, his grin too sharp, stretching in a way that made my stomach lurch. He was smiling at me with huge eyes and an even more alarming huge grin. It wasn't a friendly smile, it was hungry, predatory, like he was savoring my fear. My 6-year-old mind froze, unable to process the wrongness of it. Was he a neighbor, a stranger? Why was he here, in broad daylight, staring at me? I wanted to scream, but my voice caught in my throat. The room felt smaller, the air thicker, as if his presence sucked the warmth from the house. His gaze didn't waver, pinning me to the floor like a bug under glass. Then, a clatter from the kitchen, Grandma's knitting needles hitting the floor. I remember being scooped up in somebody's arms and carried away into another room. She moved fast, her arms strong but trembling, pulling me into the hallway. "Stay here," she whispered, her voice tight before rushing back to the living room. I huddled against the wall, my heart pounding. The cartoon's cheerful music now a distant mockery. Grandma returned moments later, her face pale, her hands gripping the phone. She didn't say what she saw, but her eyes told me enough. She'd seen him too. The police came, their radios crackling, but the man was gone, leaving only smudges on the glass. Grandma held me close, her usual warmth replaced by a quiet dread. That night I slept in her room, the curtains drawn tight, the memory of that grin burning behind my eyes. The days after were heavy with silence. Grandma kept the blinds closed, her laughter replaced by quick glances out the windows. My mom confirmed that this would have been my grandma who was babysitting me at that time, and when I asked her about it years later, she admitted the truth. Our neighborhood wasn't as safe as it seemed. We had a neighbor a few doors down who was a registered sex offender, a fact my parents shielded me from as a child. His presence cast a shadow over our street, his actions unsettling the community long before that day. Mom told me stories she'd heard. He once sprinted across the street and left a human-sized dent in our neighbor's garage door, a burst of rage that left everyone shaken. Another time, he had also walked into another neighbor's back door, trembling, and asked to be held by her. His behavior erratic, disturbing. Mrs. Thompson, who lived next door, kicked him out and called the police, shaken by his intensity. These weren't just quirks. They were warnings, red flags that made my parents build that fence and eventually move us away. We moved out of this house when I was 6 years old, the memory of that face buried in my mind, only resurfacing years later. I started noticing things after that day. Footsteps in the yard at night, a faint tap on the glass when I was alone. My parents brushed it off, saying it was just the wind, but I saw the worry in their eyes. The neighborhood felt different, like a place where secrets hid in plain sight. I stopped playing outside alone, clinging to Grandma's side, haunted by the thought that he was still out there watching. Years later, the memory resurfaced, triggered by a fleeting glimpse of a face outside my office window. I dug into the past, searching for answers. I found a lot of this out through researching his name after my mom confirmed my story. Typing his name into a search bar felt like opening a wound. I also found his Facebook page, which included a photo of him, and sealed any doubt in my mind. His face stared back, older but unmistakable. The same wide eyes, the same chilling grin. "Is he?" Sight of him, even to a screen, immediately made me nauseous, my hands shaking as I closed the tab. I learned more than I wanted. He'd been required to notify neighbors of his status, but his actions went beyond legal warnings. Other neighbors had stories, unexplained knocks, shadows in their yards, moments that left them uneasy. The police knew him, but he slipped through cracks, never caught in the act. My family's decision to move saved me from crossing his path again, but the what-ifs haunt me. What if Grandma hadn't been there? What if he'd gotten inside? Now, as an adult, I check my locks twice, my heart racing at every odd noise. Last week, a shadow moved past my window at dusk, too quick to be sure. I told myself it was nothing, but I haven't slept well since. I'm sharing this because I need to know. Has anyone else seen that face, felt that fear? If you've lived near someone who made your skin crawl, please tell me. What would you do if you knew a predator was watching, waiting just outside your window? I need answers before the shadow returns. It's midnight and I'm curled up on the couch, the house dark except for the TV's faint glow. I'm 10, waiting for Mom's late shift to end. Then I hear the front door creak open. My heart leaps. Mom's home early. But the figure stepping inside isn't her. It's a man, tall, moving with eerie familiarity. He walks straight to the kitchen, opens the fridge, grabs a beer, and sits in Dad's chair, just like my stepdad does every night. I'm frozen, staring at a stranger who feels like family. My name's Chloe, and what happened next turned my safe home into a nightmare. This is real, and it'll make you question who's really in your house. Stay with me. This gets chilling. Sat up, my blanket slipping to the floor. The front door creaked open and I smiled, thinking Mom was back early from her diner shift. But the silhouette in the doorway wasn't hers. It was a man, broad-shouldered, moving with a confidence that felt too familiar. He walked straight to the kitchen, opened the fridge, grabbed a beer, and sat in Dad's chair, flipping on the TV to a sports channel. My stepdad, Mike, did this every night after work. But Mike was upstairs, asleep. Wasn't he? I swallowed, hard, my voice shaky. "Dad?" I called, hoping it was him. The man turned, his face half lit by the TV. His eyes were cold, empty, locking onto mine without a word. He stared, unblinking, like I was an intruder in my own home. My heart pounded. This wasn't Mike. His clothes were wrong, too neat, too clean, and his face was similar, but off like a bad copy. We lived in a quiet Ohio suburb, the kind where everyone knew everyone. Our house was small, cozy, with a front yard full of Mom's flowers. But lately, things felt strange. Our neighbor, Mrs. Ellis, mentioned odd noises at night, footsteps, doors rattling. Mom laughed it off, but I'd noticed things too. Keys misplaced, lights flickering. Now, staring at this stranger, those little details felt like warnings. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The TV droned on, the only sound in the house. I glanced at the stairs, wondering if Mike was really up there. What if this man wasn't alone? My mind raced. Stories of break-ins, strangers slipping into homes unnoticed. I had to know if Mike was safe. That cold stare snapped me out of my trance. I bolted for the stairs, my bare feet slapping against the wood. "Dad!" I screamed, my voice cracking. I burst into Mike and Mom's room, fumbling for the light switch. There was Mike, fast asleep in bed, snoring softly, his work boot still. By the door, my knees buckled. If Mike was here, who was downstairs? I shook him awake, my words tumbling out. "There's a man in the house. He looks like you." Mike blinked, groggy, but my panic got through. He grabbed a baseball bat from the closet and motioned for me to stay behind him. We crept downstairs, the TV still blaring. The living room was empty. The beer bottle sat on the coffee table, half empty, but the man was gone. Mike checked the kitchen, the back door, the windows. Everything was locked, no sign of a break-in. "You sure you saw someone?" he asked, his voice tight. I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. I knew what I'd seen. Mike turned off the TV, the silence deafening. I pointed to the beer bottle. "That wasn't there before," I whispered. He frowned, picking it up. It was Mike's brand, but he swore he hadn't opened one tonight. We searched the house again, top to bottom. Nothing was missing, but something felt wrong. The air was heavy, like someone had just been here. I noticed a faint smudge on the front door's glass. A fingerprint, fresh, like someone had pressed their hand against it. Mike wiped it away, muttering about smudges, but I saw his hands shake. The next morning, I told Mom when she got home. She sighed, ruffling my hair. "You probably dreamed it, Chloe. You watch too many scary movies." But I wasn't dreaming. I saw that man, his eyes, his movements. I started wondering about the stories Mrs. Ellis told. Doors unlocking themselves, shadows in yards. What if this wasn't the first time someone had gotten in? What if he'd been watching us for weeks? Days passed, but I couldn't shake that. I stopped sleeping well, jumping at every noise. Mom and Mike started locking the doors religiously, but it didn't help. A week later, I woke up to the TV blaring downstairs at 3 a.m. I froze, my heart racing. No one was awake. Mike was snoring. Mom was at work. I crept to the stairs, peering down. The screen flickered, showing the same sports channel. I felt eyes on me, like someone was watching from the dark. I ran back to bed, pulling the covers over my head, too scared to check. It happened again a few nights later. The TV turning on by itself, always around 3 a.m. Mike checked the wiring, thinking it was a glitch, but found nothing. I started noticing other things. A chair moved slightly, a glass left on the counter, always when Mom was gone. I told my friend Anna at school, expecting her to laugh. She didn't. "My aunt had something like that," she whispered. "Someone kept getting into their garage, leaving stuff behind. Cops never caught him." My stomach dropped. Was this guy coming back? One night I found a key under the couch, not ours, old and rusted, like it had been dropped. I showed Mike and his face went pale. "That's not from our house," he said, locking it in a drawer. He started staying up late, bat by the door, but we never saw the man again. Still, I felt him, his presence lingering like he was just out of sight. Mrs. Ellis stopped by, her voice low. "Years ago, a guy lived nearby, used to sneak into houses, mimic people's routines. Never caught him." I froze. Mimic? Like what I'd seen? Last week I came home to find a photo on our porch. A blurry shot of our house taken at night with the living room light on. No note, no explanation. I showed Mom and she finally called the cops. They found nothing, but I know he's out. There. Some nights I hear the TV flicker on just for a second, and I feel that cold stare again. He's watching, waiting, and I'm terrified of when he'll walk through our door next. Headlights glared in my rearview mirror. Too close, too steady. My heart pounded as I gripped the wheel, speeding through the empty highway at midnight. A rusty pickup truck had been tailing me for miles ever since I left that gas station. I'd seen those men watching me, their eyes cold and calculating. Now they were hunting me, and I was alone, with no one to call but 911. How had a routine pit stop turned into a nightmare? It was a long drive home to see my family. 4 hours through, quiet back roads. Halfway there, I always stopped at a rest area to refuel and take a break. That night, I pulled into the gas station, noticing a man staring at me from the pump ahead. He kept watching through the corner of his eye as I fueled up, his gaze like a weight on my skin. I'm no stranger to looks. Traveling solo as a woman, you get used to it. But this was different. His stare wasn't curious, it was predatory, like he was memorizing every move I made. My dog, Max, shifted uneasily in his carrier, letting out a low whimper. I tried to shake it off, telling myself he was just another late-night traveler. But deep down, a voice whispered, "Something's wrong." That voice was right, because what happened next would haunt me for weeks. The man's stare burned into me. As I pumped gas, his eyes tracking every move. It wasn't just rude, it was deliberate, like he was cataloging me. Then another man, who looked almost identical, maybe his son, stepped out of their car and walked toward me. He leaned close, peering into my car's windows, like he was checking for something, or someone. They exchanged a quick glance, a nod so subtle I almost missed it. The younger one whispered something, and the older man's lips curled into a faint smirk. My hands trembled, the pump clicking too slowly. Max growled, his fur bristling, sensing the same threat I did. I scanned the station, empty except for a bored attendant inside, his face lit by his phone. Their truck, a rusty pickup with dark windows, sat like a predator waiting to pounce. Had I seen it before? On the drive here, a similar truck had lingered in my rear view. Always a few cars back, never passing. Was it them? I tried to stay calm, remembering my mom's advice. Don't show fear, Sarah. But fear was all I felt. The younger man circled back to their truck, his steps slow, deliberate, like he was stalling. The older one kept watching, his posture tense, ready to move. I noticed a third figure in their truck, a shadow in the driver's seat, motionless. Were there more? My stomach twisted. This wasn't random. They were working together, and I was their target. I finished, fueling, and headed inside to the restroom, my heart racing. The younger man followed, stopping just outside the door, pretending to tie his shoe. I locked the restroom door, my breath shallow, and checked my phone. No signal. I was trapped, alone, with only Max's barks to warn me. I had to get out. But how? The station felt like a cage, and those men were the hunters. I hurried back to my car, my pulse hammering. Then I saw it. A crumpled piece of paper jammed into the door handle. My mind screamed trafficking, robbery, worse. I didn't touch it, terrified of what it might mean. The older man stood at his pump, his eyes drilling into me, unyielding. The younger one leaned against their truck, smirking, his hand resting on something in his pocket. A knife? A gun? Max's barks exploded, frantic, urging me to move. The station was a ghost town, its flickering lights casting eerie shadows across the lot. The attendant was still glued to his phone, useless. I knew I had to get out. These guys weren't random, they wanted something, and I wasn't sticking around to find out what. I jumped into my car, locking the doors, my hands shaking as I fumbled with the keys. The older man took a step toward me, his arm raised, mouth opening to speak. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Stay where you are. My blood froze. How did they have my number? I slammed the gas, tires screeching as I tore out of the station. In the rear view, their truck roared to life, headlights blazing as it swung onto the highway behind me. They were chasing me. I pushed the car to its limit, weaving through dark roads, Max whimpering beside me. The truck stayed close, its engine growling like a beast. I dialed 911, voice trembling, spilling everything, the paper, the stairs, the pursuit. Get to a police station, the dispatcher said. Miles later, I hit a busy interchange and lost them, their truck swallowed by traffic. I pulled into a police station, gasping, and handed over the paper in a plastic bag. It was blank, a torn scrap, but its presence screamed intent. The cops took my statement, but the men were gone. I sat there, clutching Max, my mind replaying every terrifying second, knowing I'd narrowly escaped something horrific. I told the police everything, the staring, the paper, the chase. They searched for the truck, but it was long gone. I was shaken, realizing how vulnerable I'd been. As a woman, I'm used to stares, but this was different, predatory, planned. I learned to always stay alert, especially alone. The cops said the paper might have been a scare tactic, not trafficking, but that didn't calm me. I drove home, eyes glued to the rear view, Max's warmth my only comfort. The next week was a haze of fear. I kept seeing that truck in my mind, its headlights like eyes in the dark. A strange number called, silent when I picked up, then disconnected. At a grocery store, a man lingered too long near my car, his build eerily similar to the younger guy. Was it him? I bolted, heart racing. Back home, I found a scrap of paper under my wiper, blank, like the first. My mom, Ellen, urged me to stay with her, and I did, sleeping with the lights on. I dove into research on solo travel safety. Predators target women at rest stops, using notes or stares to unsettle them. Pairs like those men work together, one distracting, the other closing in. I'd been lucky. Max's barks, my quick escape, the police station saved me, but others aren't. I read about women followed, robbed, or attacked after stopping at isolated stations. Had they targeted me because I was alone? Because my out-of-state plate screamed outsider? I overhauled my life. No more late-night stops. I share my route with Ellen, carry a stun gun, and choose well-lit stations with cameras. I told friends who shared their own stories. A note on a windshield. A man tailing them home. It's a pattern, one women know too well. I started advocating for safety, urging others to trust their instincts, check their cars, and report anything suspicious. I'll never know what those men wanted, but I'm grateful I trusted my gut. That night showed me how fragile safety is. If you're on the road alone, scan your surroundings, lock your doors. Don't ignore warnings, no matter how small. And if you're followed, head straight to help. Have you ever felt hunted on a drive? Share your story below. I stood frozen in the doorway of my best friend's house, the night air cold against my skin. The door was wide open, swinging on its hinges, and Amy was gone. No note, no call, just silence, and the chilling certainty that something terrible had happened. This wasn't a disappearance. This was a crime, and I was the only one who seemed to care. My name's Lauren, a 25-year-old from rural Alabama, where the nearest neighbor is a mile away and the forest feels alive at night. Amy, my best friend since high school, lived alone, in a small house at the edge of those woods. She was tough, independent, the kind of person who'd text back even at 2 a.m. But that night, her messages stopped. I'd sent her a dozen texts, called twice and got nothing. Worry gnawed at me, so I drove to her place, the gravel crunching under my tires as I pulled up. The front door was open, swaying in the breeze, and the lights were on, spilling onto the porch. My stomach dropped. Amy would never leave her door like that. I called her name, my voice trembling, but only the crickets answered. The house felt wrong, like it was holding its breath. I stepped inside, my boots echoing on the hardwood, and saw the chaos. Couch cushions tossed, a lamp tipped over. Her purse and phone were still on the counter, untouched, ruling out a quick trip or a runaway. My heart raced. This wasn't right. Amy was meticulous. Her home, her sanctuary. Someone had been here, and they'd taken her. I dialed 911, my hands shaking. But even as I spoke to the dispatcher, a sinking feeling hit me. In a small town like ours, the police were slow to act, quick to dismiss. I'd heard stories, missing women brushed off as runaways, cases left cold. But Amy wasn't a runaway. She was my friend, and I wasn't going to let her become a statistic. As I waited for the cops, one thought consumed me. Who did this, and why didn't anyone else seem to care? Inside Amy's house, the air was thick with dread. The living room was a mess. Cushions scattered, a lamp overturned as if someone had torn through in a hurry. I scanned the kitchen, my pulse hammering. Her purse sat on the counter, her phone next to it, the screen dark but still charged. Amy never left without her phone. My hand shook as I checked the rest of the house. Bedroom, bathroom, all empty. The back door was locked, but a window in the living room was cracked open. The latch bent. Someone had forced their way in. Sank onto the couch, trying to piece it together. Amy was careful, always locking her doors, always texting me if she was going out. This wasn't her. This was someone else. My mind flashed to a memory from 2 weeks ago. Amy had mentioned a strange man lingering near her property, asking for directions to a road that didn't exist. She'd laughed it off, but I'd seen him too, a week later, parked in a beat-up truck down the road. He'd stared at us, his eyes cold before driving off. I'd thought he was just a drifter, but now, standing in her wrecked living room, I wasn't so sure. His face haunted me. Scruffy beard, sunken cheeks, a gaze that lingered too long. Amy had said he'd come back once, knocking on her door, asking to use her phone. She'd refused, locking the door, but he'd stood there for minutes, just staring. I'd told her to call the cops, but she'd shrugged, saying it was probably nothing. Now, that nothing felt like everything. Had he been watching her, waiting for the right moment? My stomach churned as I imagined him slipping through that window, catching her off guard. I stepped outside, the forest looming dark and silent behind the house. The police still hadn't arrived, and the wait was agonizing. I scanned the yard, looking for anything. A footprint, a clue. That's when I noticed something glinting in the grass near the tree line. My heart skipped. It was a keychain, one Amy always carried, shaped like a tiny guitar. She'd never leave it behind. I picked it up, my hands trembling, and realized whatever happened to Amy started right here, and that man was the key. The sound of gravel crunching snapped me back. Headlights cut through the darkness. A police cruiser, finally. But as the officer stepped out, his face bored and skeptical, I knew this wasn't going to be easy. Amy was out there, and I was running out of time. The officer, a middle-aged man with a tired slouch, barely glanced at the house. Probably just took off, he said, scribbling in his notepad. I showed him the keychain, the overturned lamp, the open window, but he shrugged. People leave all the time. She'll turn. My blood boiled. Amy wasn't people. She was my friend, and every second he wasted was a second she was in danger. I demanded he search the woods, pointing to the tree line where I'd found the keychain. He sighed, muttering about procedure. but followed me. The forest was dark, the air heavy with pine and damp earth. I led the way, my flashlight sweeping the ground, my heart pounding with every step. Amy was out here. I could feel it. About 50 yards in, my beam caught something white tangled in the underbrush. I froze. It was Amy's sneaker, laces still tied, half buried in the dirt. My knees buckled. "That's hers," I whispered, my voice breaking. I pointed it out to the officer, expecting urgency, but he just nodded, bagging it with a bored expression. "Could have dropped it any time," he said, as if a single sneaker in the middle of the woods was normal. I wanted to scream. This wasn't a coincidence, it was proof, a cry for help Amy couldn't make. I told him about the strange man, his truck, his lingering stares, but the officer cut me off. "No evidence he did anything. We'll file a report, but don't." "Hold your breath." I stared at him, stunned. No evidence? Her house was trashed, her shoe was here, and he was acting like I was hysterical. As he walked back to his cruiser, I noticed something. A flicker of unease in his eyes when I mentioned. The man, did he know something? Was he protecting someone? I stayed in the woods, my flashlight trembling as I searched for more clues. The trees seemed to close in, their shadows twisting into shapes that made my skin crawl. I found nothing else, but the weight of that sneaker, the image of Amy's empty house crushed me. She was out there alone and I was failing her. The police weren't coming to save her. They'd already written her off. I stumbled back to my car, tears stinging my eyes, the officer's words echoing, "Don't hold your breath." But I wasn't giving up. Amy deserved better, and I'd find her no matter what it took. As I drove away, the forest stared back, silent and unyielding. What had it seen? And why was no one listening? Back at my apartment, I couldn't sit still. Amy's sneaker, her trashed house, the strange man's face, they haunted me. I called her parents, my voice shaking as I broke the news. They were devastated, promising to drive down from Tennessee the next day. I told them about the police, their indifference, and they were furious but not surprised. Small towns. Amy's mom said bitterly, "They protect their own." Her words hit hard. Was that why the officer brushed me off? Was the man in the truck someone they knew? I couldn't wait for answers. I printed flyers with Amy's photo, her bright smile staring back at me, and plastered them around town. Gas stations, diners, the post office. I talked to neighbors, anyone who might have seen something. A few remembered the man, his truck, parked near the woods, but no one knew his name. I tracked down Amy's coworkers, who confirmed she'd been acting nervous the week before, mentioning a creepy guy who'd followed her home. Every clue pointed to him, but without the police, I was on my own. The days blurred together, each one heavier than the last. I kept Amy's keychain in my pocket, a reminder of why I couldn't stop. The police called once saying they'd looked into it, but found nothing. Their apathy fueled my anger, but it also lit a fire in me. Amy wasn't a case number. She was the person who'd laughed with me until we cried, who'd planned our road trip to the coast. I wasn't giving up, even if the system had. I started a social media campaign, sharing Amy's story, begging for tips. Few strangers reached out offering support, but no leads. Still, I kept going because giving up meant losing her forever. This experience changed me. I learned that justice isn't guaranteed, that sometimes you have to fight for it yourself. Amy's disappearance, the police's inaction, taught me to trust my instincts, to keep pushing when no one else will. I still don't know what happened to her, but I hold on to hope, however faint. Her case is cold now, but I check the woods, the flyers, the tips, every chance I get. She's out there, and I'll find her, or at least the truth. So here's what keeps me awake. If someone you loved vanished and no one cared, would you give up? Or would you fight even if it broke you? Tell me, because I'm still fighting for Amy and I don't know how to stop. 14 stories, 14 chances to turn away. But you didn't. You listened. And now, like those who came before you, you know too much. You've seen the pattern. Different states, different names, but the same silence, the same disappearances, the same sounds behind closed doors no one wants to open again. Maybe one of these places was familiar. Maybe the story sounded close. Too close. If you've started to feel watched, if the room feels colder than before, you're not alone. That's how it starts. With attention. The stories want to be heard, but they also want something else, and this was only part of the file. There are more, deeper cases, more recent sightings, more truths that people tried to bury, but couldn't keep down. So if you're still curious, subscribe, come back, because the next episode won't just tell you a story. It'll leave something behind.